Hey, how are you?
Oh wait, my sound's off. There we go. Hi.
Hey, how are you?
Good. I can hear you.
Perfect. How many calves did you have today?
Two, I think.
Two. Is
Slow
that,
day.
yeah? Are you getting to the end of calving?
No, I think it's gonna get busy. We had 8 yesterday,
Okay.
so that was busy. We're
Yeah.
365, right? So
Yeah.
just a busy month. I think we still got another 75 due this month.
Wow.
Yeah.
I saw one of your tweets over Christmas. You were supposed to have a bunch of calves on the one day.
Yeah. So it's a misleading tweet because it's good entertainment value, but it's misleading. So we bought a bunch of cows in that were all bull bred.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you preg check those, the vet just says 6, 6.5, 7, 8 months, right? Right. So there's no
Mm-hmm.
specific day; it's just a range. So when I fill that in the computer, I put it in at 6.5 months. It'll pop all those calves on one day, right? Because the computer
Oh.
is bull bred; it just thinks that we're correct, right? So
Mm-hmm.
then all of those calvings that were all 6 months or whatever, they popped up on one day, right? But there's like 30 due that day.
Holy smokes.
Yeah, but it's like plus or minus 10 days probably. So it's a 20
Right.
day period. But it's going to get busy here right away. So
Hmm.
see how it goes.
That's fun and maybe a little bit stressful.
It's not too bad. I like calvings. And we got a student from Holland right now. So she's helping out lots with that stuff.
Oh, cool.
Mhm.
Well, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, are we started already?
Yep, it's recording.
Okay.
I have to say congratulations on your engagement over Christmas.
Thank you. Yeah, about time.
And Dawn will be mad if I don't ask. Do you guys have a date set?
Yeah, I think it's going to be in August at some point. We're still waiting for the venue, but because everyone is, of course, wanting to get married, because everyone postponed for a year.
Mm-hmm.
So we decided to do it in August so that we could wait as long as possible to see how the COVID would react during the summer. So that's why we're thinking August.
Okay, that's awesome.
Hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so this is not an in-depth podcast into dairy at all. There's so many aspects of dairy farming that we can go into, and maybe we can have you back for some more episodes. So today we kind of have some basic questions from people.
Sure. Yeah.
The first question is, can you tell us about the blue cow and what that means, why people should look for it in the store? And then we had a question specifically, why did they choose blue for the cow?
That's a good question. So the Blue Cow logo is basically a certification of Canadian dairy milk, meaning that it's 100% Canadian milk. So when you buy a product with the Blue Cow logo on it, whether it just be a 2 liter jug of milk or eggnog or anything, butter, it means it's made from 100% Canadian dairy products, whether that be skim milk powder or actual milk. When you and actually a lot of processors have adopted that logo. So if you don't see it, I think you can safely assume that it's not made with 100% Canadian milk. So meaning that is some American milk products that are being used in that product that you're buying. So it's very important to
Mm,
be buying the Blue Cow logo to support local dairy farms, but also to get a higher quality milk because there is a big difference in the standards between the states and Canada, us being way higher. So that's why I got to look for the Blue Cow. Why it's blue is a good question. I tried to look it up when I saw your questions come in. I think the previous logo had always been blue, and I'm sure that our marketing organizations have done some research into producer or consumers reacting positively to the color blue, maybe.
mm.
But I know that as the processors have different labels and different colored label schemes, our logo does adapt. So, like on the eggnog ones, on the Beatrice jugs, it was a red cow.
Oh,
So
okay.
a few of them were green, and so there's different colors, but the generic logo, like our main brand, is blue. But why? I'm not totally sure. But it
Mm.
looks nice. I like it.
Yeah, it's easy to see on
Yeah,
most products, so that's a good thing.
yeah,
When you're talking about the difference between Canadian and American standards, what are some of those?
yeah. So Canada follows a set of laws, I guess, that dairy farmers follow, and the program's called Pro Action. So every single farm across Canada is mandated by a very strict set of rules on standards of animal welfare, quality of milk. Even now, we're starting to get more and more environmental modules coming in there. And the Americans don't have the same set of standard rules, and that's the main difference. The other main difference is that the hormone BST is outlawed in Canada, banned, and it's a hormone that's still used in the States for producing milk. So that's a big difference. So when you buy a product without the Blue Cow logo, you don't know for sure it doesn't have that hormone included. Whereas when you are buying the Blue Cow logo product of milk, you know for sure it doesn't have that hormone in it. So those are the main reasons, definitely.
Oh, interesting. Why did Canada ban that hormone, or what is it for?
So that's like way before my time already. Canada has had a ban a long time, but it's basically a growth hormone that is able to allow the persistency of a cow's lactation to last longer. So the cow is basically artificially producing milk for a longer period of time. So it's not exactly animal friendly, or cow, or not, doesn't really include a lot of cow welfare in there.
Mm,
So that's one of the main reasons that Canada has it banned.
okay.
Mm-hmm.
Another question that people ask a lot about is antibiotic use in milk, or does milk have antibiotics in it? So can you talk about antibiotic use in your farm and in milk, and what does that all mean?
Yeah, sure. So antibiotics still play a very important role on dairy farms today, and every farm across the country. Just we have sick animals, just like people get sick, and when we have sick animals, we need to make the choice to use antibiotics. So, but on our farm, we do have two special types of parlors. So one parlor is where 99% of the herd is milked, and all that milk is saleable and goes towards the consumer. And then we have the other 1%, or even way less than 1% of the herd that may have some antibiotic use in their treatments. That milk is completely held separate, doesn't go through the same lines, and that is actually pasteurized and then fed to the calves. So we call that our waste milk. But every single dairy farm across Canada all follows the same rules inside of ProAction, our rule guideline mandate. And there are very, very strict rules set out that we have to follow milk withdrawal times on antibiotic use. So every single type of different antibiotic that we can use has a label on there that shows you the withdrawal time for milk. So if you were to use that antibiotic on an animal, it shows you 96 hours or 3 weeks that you cannot ship milk or drink milk from that animal. So that's kind of how antibiotic use is done in Canada, and especially on our farm.
So if a cow is on antibiotics, you still milk them. Where does the milk go?
Yeah, so in our case, it would be pasteurized and then fed to the calves. Most farms are like that. Some farms discard the milk entirely, but we don't let it go to waste. We just make sure it's completely pasteurized and safe for the calves to drink.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So that with the rise in alternative milks, does that affect the dairy industry? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, it's always going to be a competition in our market space, and I think it's slowly growing. But alternative milks are also very costly to the environment. If we take almond milk, for example, I've been in California and seen almond farms. They use way more water than dairy farms do, and get way less milk in return. So it's not a very efficient product, and it's a very costly product to the environment. And I think that more and more consumers are just as worried about environmental footprints as they are um, people who are worried about animal welfare and those things. And so yes, they're competition, and we definitely have to always be careful of it. But dairy milk is still by a large margin the most popular source for milk.
Mm-hmm. You kind of touched on one thing I was thinking about. Like, is it the animal welfare side of things? Is it the environmental side of things that people are most concerned of with
Um,
alternative milks?
I, well, I'm not worried about dairy milk, obviously, so I may be the wrong person to ask, but I know that, in my personal opinion, I think that the animal welfare thing is like farmers are way more open nowadays than they used to be. In our farm, especially, we do a lot of PR stuff. We do
Mm-hmm.
tours. Like, whenever someone wants to come on farm. Now, COVID has definitely kind of sucked, but usually we're very open to tours, at least one or two a week, whether it be 2 people or 30 people coming. We have no problem opening our doors and showing people what our farm looks like and how the cows are treated. But I think the environment is just as important nowadays as animal welfare was in the past. Not to say that's not important anymore, but the environment is really taking over. And so I think that that plays a big role in that.
Mhm. So what are some of the environmental impacts of dairy farming?
It's being alleged that the carbon dioxide emissions from the cows can be not good for the environment, and a lot of the tillaging practices. But those are all things that we're working on to eliminate and to decrease. And those are some of the things that are going to come forward in the new pro-action set of rules with the environment, is things for farmers to work towards, and everyone making sure that they have a farm environmental plan, which we've had now for over 10 years already, and to
Wow.
follow some of the guidelines that are included in there.
Hmm.
So
So
we'll see more.
pro-action is updated every year?
Yeah, it's still relatively new, so it's been around for probably 5 or 6 years. So it's never done. I think that farms are always progressing and moving forward. So I think those rules and standards will keep changing or keep improving as consumers look for a better and healthier product. But at the first point, we have to get all the farmers on board, and then we have to see where everyone's at, and then from there we keep moving. So the environmental thing is still in the early stages of being set into rules and laws, but a lot of farms are already adapting some of those things. Like, for example, on our farm, we already separate all the manure solids from the liquid solids from the liquid manure. So liquid manure is actually injected on farm, so we don't need to go across the fields with expensive tankers and tractors and things like that. We just drag line our manure. So just one hose system that directly injects manure into the field. And that way we get way less burn off on top of the fields, and we're spreading manure. We actually inject the manure straight into the soil. So those are one of the things that we do.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
We had a question about vitamin, like you'll see on milk packaging, vitamin A and D added.
Yeah.
Uh, why do they add it in?
So I had to Google this too, because usually just drink my own milk, so don't even buy milk usually, right? So,
Yeah.
but it turns out that when processors skim milk, so to get down from the 4.5% milk that I sell to the 2% that you would buy in store, that vitamin A is naturally kind of removed from the product when you do that with skimming. And
Okay.
so the government actually has a legislated, I found out it's in the Health Canada Act, is that vitamin A has to be added back to a certain percentage. So that's
Okay.
one of the reasons why they do that, I guess. And then depending on regions of the world, different vitamins are added. So if that population or society is deficient on a certain vitamin, that will get added back to milk, because we know that milk is one of the main beverage of choices, especially for growing children. The vitamins that are needed are added back into there.
So
Yeah.
for Canadians, vitamin D in the winter, when we don't get sunshine, we're looking for some
Yeah.
vitamin D.
I'd probably just drink some orange juice.
Yeah.
Not too much, but just enough.
Yeah. Okay, that's interesting. And another question that came up, do you know the difference between regular milk and lactose-free, or why there needs to be lactose-free milk?
Well, the lactose is removed in lactose-free milk. It's because of the enzyme that we have in our bodies, and some people are deficient on that enzyme to break down the lactase, I think it's called at that stage. So that's one of the reasons why there's lactose intolerant milk. I know that like me and Angela do once in a while buy now the Fairlife milk, since they just came out with a Canadian processing plant for Canadian milk, so they're 100% Canadian. And they're owned by Coca-Cola actually, but they have their milk is all lactose intolerant milk, and it tastes fine. It tastes the same, and they actually add a lot more protein back into their milk, so it's really healthy. And so that's sometimes milk that we drink, but it doesn't hurt the stomach as much as some of the whole milk. But each person is different, and it depends on how many or which enzymes you have that are able to break down the lactose.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm starting to see a lot more lactose-free products in the grocery store now, like yogurt and milk and
Yeah.
all kinds of new
That's
things.
important. Oh, those are markets that we can now tap if we can remove that lactose. Those are markets that we can fill. Otherwise, the consumer is turned away from milk, right? And goes towards orange juice or equivalent or almond milk or something. But if we are able to help consumers out by removing lactose, then it's a huge market that we're able to hold on to.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
What you touched a little bit on the trade aspects of things. So what is supply management and how does that affect your farm and how does that affect Canadians?
Yeah, sure. So supply management is basically the protection of dairy quotas inside of Canada, so that when you want to grow or expand, you have to buy from the total pool. So there's basically an amount of milk that is needed on a daily basis or a monthly basis throughout Canada, or even a yearly basis. I guess it's all split up. But we try very hard not to produce more or less than that quota. And that allows basically for a fair price to be paid out to the farmer. There's three people that benefit from milk sales. Basically, you have the grocery store, the processor, and the farmer. And in a lot of other market chains, the price, like right now, beef prices are very, very terrible for farmers. But I will bet you have not seen beef prices drop in the grocery stores. So what happens is that the margin somewhere along the chain is disproportionate. And with supply management, every single person in the supply chain, so all three, are able to make relatively equal amounts of money along the way. So the farmer is fairly paid out. Right now, beef farmers are having a really tough time because feed prices are really, really high. Barley's trading around $6 a bushel. It's going to be very tough for beef farmers to make any profit this year. And beef prices are low. And so what happens is the grocery stores still make the same amount of money, if not more sometimes, because they'll squeeze the guys down below them, right? And with dairy, it's even harder. Like, so down in the States, they have a free market system. And so they do combine insurances and stuff like that. They can hedge their milk sales. But when a processor goes to you and says, okay, I want to pay you X amount per liter, and you say, well, that's not high enough, you can hold on to it like you can canola or even a couple of feedlot steers. You can hold on for a few more weeks. You have to ship it that day, right? So dairy farmers are always in a very, very vulnerable position that they really have no ability to market their milk because there's such a shelf life on this product. So supply management is just basically the ability for us to know exactly how much is needed. And the pricing that we're paid is actually based on a cost study. So there's a national cost study that shows how much milk costs to produce on a farm level, and we're paid relatively close to that value. A little bit above, of course, because we need to be able to have families and have income off the farm. But it's all managed really closely to see what the cost of that milk is for the average of the farms across Canada.
Does that keep the price of milk in the grocery store steady?
Yeah, it does. Because there's not much room to move it. And of course, if the price goes up from milk, it's still not necessarily the farmer that's charging more. It could still be the grocery chain, right?
Right.
But grocery chains usually keep their milk low because it's a product that most people need every single day. So when you go to the store to get milk, you buy Coca-Cola and you buy a quick trough of bananas, right? And that's where they make their margins. Lots of times they call milk a loss leader because the grocery stores will actually going to turn a loss on milk, but then be able to sell more cookies, for example, right? So it's a drop into the stores.
So you have a milk truck come to your farm every single day?
Yes, that's correct. So our farm right now is shipping almost 22,000 liters a day. So that's a lot of milk.
And how many cows do you have?
We have about 625 cows.
And on average, a cow is producing how much milk a day?
Our cows are averaging right now 38 liters.
38
but
liters.
we did this week have a record cow. I've never seen it before, and I had to like triple check it to make sure everything was correct. But we did have a cow this week at 90 liters in one day.
Wow.
Yeah, that's crazy. So that's a lot. I've never seen that before. And it wasn't just like a one day thing. Sometimes if, let's say, cow had a bad day the day before and then she kind of catches up the next day, that does happen once in a while. You have an increase. She actually averaged 83 liters over the week every single day. So yeah, that's crazy.
She's just a super cow.
Yeah, she's a super cow. Yeah, for sure. I wish I had 600 more like her.
Yeah, that's crazy. But okay, so with supply management, say somehow all of a sudden you got a bunch of super cows, you can still only sell the same amount of milk, right?
Well, I can trade. So it's called like credits, right? Quota credits, we call them, or yeah, quota credits. And so I can either buy more straight out, which is a capital investment. I can buy more credits, and I would be buying those from producers who are selling their credits, so people leaving the industry or have too many credits for the milk that they have. And then I can also lease and rent credits between farms. So because we have to meet a production total on a monthly basis.
Okay.
So we're allowed to go as a 10 days over and 5 days under. So we have a daily production with the hit, but we can go 10 days over and five under on a monthly basis kind of thing. So we can normally estimate how much milk. So it's not like, okay, Bessie today didn't milk good enough. I'm not going to hit my quota credits tomorrow. Because that's not how it works. It's kind of on a more on a flexible schedule with that.
Okay.
So when we need more, when we have cows like that producing 90 liters, and actually my herd is milking really well at the moment, we have to look at either buying more credits or leasing in more credits from farms that may be struggling and having a tougher time to milk right now.
Mm, okay.
Yeah.
So from the time that the milk truck is at your farm, how long is it usually before the milk gets to the store?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not sure if I have the answer for that. I know when I
Okay.
was a kid, I did a ride along with the milk truck driver, but I would say it's like 2 days maybe. Um, but I don't really know how that process goes. I've seen it once when I was a kid, but I had never been back. But most of our milk goes into Edmonton to Saputo usually, but it could go somewhere else. We don't usually know once it leaves. Like once the milk goes through the line into the truck, I've sold it technically, and
Right.
then from there it goes to the processors. And our organizing body, Alberta Milk, decides where the milk goes into which processors and who needs what. So, but it usually goes to Edmonton, and I bet you would be at the store within 2 or 3 days with shipping and traveling.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Hmm.
So one cool thing about your farm, I've been to your farm a couple times, is that your cows are laying on beach sand. They're living
Yeah.
a pretty good life over there. Tell us about the sand, why you have sand instead of straw, and how that's good for your cows.
Yeah. So or I guess my dad, when he built this farm in 2009, we moved here. Sand was still a relatively new concept in Alberta. We were actually the first farm to start adopting sand stalls, but it was not a new thing down in the states, where there was a lot of progressive herds and a lot of bigger herds. And so my dad was always watching down there to see what they were doing. And sand was not new for them, but it was new up here. And so very skeptical on how it was going to work and stuff, and finding the right sand. We went through a lot of headaches, but to find out a way to reclaim the sand out of the manure. But sand for the cows is by far like internationally recognized as the best bedding source for cows to lay on, and that's because it's an inorganic material, so it doesn't easily grow bacteria like straw or sawdust would, that just naturally start growing bacteria. And it also provides very good traction. So when the sand is entered into the alleys, it creates better traction for the cows to walk on and get more grit. And then it
Mm.
also is cooler in the summer, so it's nice and cool to lay on. And in the winters, it works fine, and it keeps the cows really, really clean. So those are all the reasons why we like it. Now, the tough things about sand is, like I said, reclaiming it out of the manure. So we actually all of our manure goes through a sand settling lane. So we're actually able to sink the sand out of the manure, and the manure keeps traveling. And then we actually remove the sand by skid steer out, and then it goes onto a pile, and then we're able to actually remove the sand from the manure, and the manure keeps going. So that saves us a lot of headaches when it comes time to doing manure hauling, because we don't have sand mixing everywhere.
Hmm.
Yeah.
How often do you have to clean out the sand?
Our sandling gets cleaned out every 2 days.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's just a regular chore on our farm to clean out the sand, and we add new sand every week as well. We do about 100 tons of fine beach sand a week on our farm. But
Wow.
that's close to 1,000 free stalls that get bedded with sand on our farm.
Hmm.
Yeah.
You also incorporate a lot of cow psychology into your farm. So where did you hear about that? How did you find it? And can you talk about a few of the cow psychology aspects that you've added in?
Yeah, sure. So, um, I'm sure it's been around for forever, and there are just some farmers who are better cow people than other people, and I like to think of myself as a cow person. So just like first realizing that every cow is a woman and is independent, has their own complete personality,
Yeah.
and and just I guess believing that it's not a herd, it's 100 individuals in a pen. So you have bully cows, you have the shy cows, you have really friendly cows, you have curious cows, and all these different things. So
Mhm.
we really developed our pens to allow for cows to get away from each other. Like bully cows are a big problem. And so when you have, let's say, one crossover from where the bed's laid to where the feed is, one or two cows can patrol that area and really limit the amount of times that a shy cow can go eat. And
Right.
and and this is, I'm sure, proven out there, but we haven't done any research on it. We just believe in it, right? Really. Another big thing we do is so we have like lots of crossovers in our pens. We even have extra water bowls. So most farms put a water bowl at each crossover, so three a pen usually for
Mhm.
our size. But we actually added more water bowls, like four more per pen, just so that a cow doesn't need to work too hard or be too worried to go get a drink of water somewhere. So
Mm.
that's really important. And then we really believe in groupings. So once a cow enters a group, she shouldn't be moved for a period of time. Like you move a cow every single time. It's like bringing a new kid to your school. It takes like 2 weeks for them to customize themselves to the classmates, right?
Right.
So we like that too. Like you want, there's a social hierarchy, believe it or not, within those 100 cow groups that we have. So we like to leave those alone as long as possible, so we don't move groups too often. And so we actually paint all our cows. So all our cows have like a blue mark if they're in the blue group. So if they do get lost from their group, then they can immediately go back, and we can just visually see that really quickly. And then another big thing we do is we separate the first lactation. So girls that are going into their first lactation, with we separate them from the older girls. Again, for bullying, it's just like putting 3 or 4 grade 10s in a class of grade 12s. It's not
Mhm.
going to go good, right? It's really
Yeah.
cool when that goes on, and those grade 10s are not going to flourish. So
Mhm.
we have separated groups for all our young animals to keep them away from the older girls, and they do a lot better that way.
Mhm.
Yeah, so those are a couple of the things, I guess.
Yeah, and I liked when we took our leadership group to your farm, they were asking about the brushes that you have in the pens for the cows, and that ladies like to do their hair, so cows are no different.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's just a grooming. It's a grooming tool we have, and it really has no direct return on investment. But you cannot put a return on investment number on cow happiness. Well, you
Hmm.
can produce more, but it's difficult, right?
Right.
So we hummed and hawed about it, but we're like, nah, these girls work hard for us. So we're gonna put, because they're $5,000. We put brushes in every single pen,
Hmm.
and and they love it. Like especially, I guess the one really good time for them is between spring and summer. They're able to go underneath there and lose their hair coats faster.
Right.
So that helps. It's really dusty usually around that area. If you want to sneeze really good, just walk by that brush because there's hair floating around everywhere. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, our girls love those brushes.
Yeah. Happy cows are happy farmers.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good milk. You also have Fitbits on your cows,
Yes.
or a version of Fitbits. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So our cows, they're collars now, so they wear a Fitbit type mechanism on their neck as a collar. And much like a Fitbit, our collars track walking times. So step counters, basically, just like a Fitbit would.
Hmm.
So one of the first reasons is like our dairy farm is 100% artificially inseminated. So we do all the breeding, we pick the bulls, and we have to find the cows in heat. So when a cow comes into heat every 21 days, she actually walks throughout her pen more. She's running around, curious, looking for a mate, getting all hot and sweaty, and the step counts go up. So we actually see from their baseline that there's a significant increase in the amount of steps she's taking. And I don't even need to look at an individual cow's graph. That cow on my farm will automatically get sorted out into our sorting pen. So after every milking, all the cows walk through a gate that either allows them to pass or separates them out into a small little pen. And then so after every milking, I go and check to see if there's any breeding cows. So then I check my computer list, and yeah, there's 2 cows for breeding. They've been sorted out, and then I can go ahead and breed them. So that's what we use the activity system for. But in the same collar now, So that activity system is an old system that's been around for 20 years or so, very reliably. But now something new that we're started doing is using rumination and eating time sensors. So those collars are actually monitoring the times a cow regurgitates and is ruminating inside of her stomach, and also the amount of minutes a day that she's eating or swallowing feed at the feed bun. Now, why are those things important? Well, just like us, when we get sick, we lose our appetite, usually already a day before we actually get sick, right? You start feeling off,
Mm.
you're not hungry anymore, and you don't want to eat. And it's the same with the cows. So when they start getting sick with whatever illness that they have, they stop eating or ruminating 2 or 3 days before they actually show a clinical sign. So now our farm is actually able to identify sick cows way before they actually get sick, like almost to the point where I'm looking at a cow sometimes like, sorry, honey, like I don't know what's wrong with you yet. Like we might have to
Right.
wait till this afternoon so I can see something because I know you're not feeling well, but I don't know what it is. Um,
Right.
and why that's also good is so when I'm that early in like diagnosing a cow, I can actually use way more supplemental therapies instead of switching right away to antibiotics. So lots of times we'll give them a drench or something, or some water with some minerals, or some sort of a probiotic or something that can help them get on their feet faster, or a painkiller instead of an actual, we can give them an Advil instead of giving them an antibiotic, right? So that's really positive in being able to decrease our antibiotic use on a farm and increase the animal welfare.
Mm. Are a lot of farms using this technology now in
Yeah, more and
Alberta?
more. Yeah, more and more. Um, we were one of the first ones, and I think I did get a government grant for it because it was such a progressive idea to use it. So we got it a couple of years ago, but a lot of farms are using it, and that just shows how reliable it is and how great of a return on investment a technology like that is.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to ask you about artificial insemination for a sec. Whenever I see AI in articles, I know they're talking about artificial intelligence, but my country kid brain always goes to artificial insemination, and I'm like, oh no, that's not what they're talking about. But why do you choose to use artificial insemination on your farm?
First of all, will be safety for my employees and me, and for my cows. Those 4,000 pound bulls, I mean, they are mean and scary, and some of my cows are not looking forward to getting mounted by those.
Yeah.
But then second, I think the most important reason is genetics. To be like we're buying $20 to $30 straw semen with super high genetic values that if I were to have a bull of that caliber on my farm would cost me $200,000 or $300,000. So it's just not. It's a way more efficient way to be artificially breeding with bulls that we can select for certain traits from
Mm.
Canada or from down in the States, where a lot more genetics are located. But yeah, the bulls, like it's a no-brainer to not have bulls on the farm. And then there are fewer and fewer dairy farms that do have it. I would bet that the Hutterites are a special exemption because of their religious status with using AI. But of the conventional farms across Alberta, I would say that over 80% use artificial insemination.
Hmm. Do you find that artificial insemination is a little bit controversial, or do most people see the benefits of having it?
Yeah, tough to say. I'm not a consumer. Well, I'm a consumer, but I'm a farmer first. I've never, like, I've done lots and lots of tours, and AI has never been something that I've been questioned on.
Mm.
It's usually antibiotic use and lately environmental. But AI is not something that I've usually come across on my tours as being something of a problem. Um,
Mm.
she's gonna get bred either way, whether it's through my gentle arm or by that of a 4,000 pound bull jumping on her. Like
Right. Yeah.
you're poison, I guess. But
Hmm.
this is a much more friendly way of doing it, and we're able to better um, pick our genetics and quality.
Right.
Mhm.
And for the past couple years, you guys have been growing corn under biodegradable plastic. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, sure. So our farm's been growing corn for 10 years. So ever since we've been in Cameroon, and we moved from Redwater before, which where we didn't grow corn, but we've been growing here for 10 years. And for 7 of those first 10 years, we grew mediocre corn. And if there's any farmers listening, well, they'll understand this on the laugh. But we always say like Vermeer's Dairy was a farm that was really good at growing heifer feed, like below average feed. Like we have it down pat. Like if you want below average feed, we can make it for you. But we need better feed. And so like the biggest cost on our farm every single year, at the bottom of the profit and loss column, is feed purchased. How much
Mhm.
and what type of feed do we need to buy to get the milk production that we get? And why can't we grow it on our own acres? So corn silage totally fits into that. Like we need to be able to grow top quality corn silage. We're one of the only places in the world that doesn't actively feed corn silage to dairy cows. It's still typically barley silage out here. Now corn silage is making a huge push as genetics in the corn sector are getting better and better for low heat unit areas.
Mhm.
But our farm looked at forage quality and said this is something that we need to focus on. So on Twitter, we had actually seen a couple of farms in northern Ontario that had this biodegradable plastic film corn seeder. So what it does is it seeds corn conventionally, but then applies a single layer of thin biodegradable plastic film over top of the seed row. So it puts two seed rows underneath one sheet of film. And now that creates a super hot greenhouse environment, really humid, really hot, and gives that corn a great start to life. And so the plastic usually stays on for 5 to 7 weeks, and the corn starts to grow really, really quick, and then eventually punches its way through the film, and then the film just naturally sinks onto the ground. And by the end of the season, over 90% of our film is gone or evaporated,
Wow.
just completely worked back into the soil. So it is completely biodegradable. There's nothing left after the next spring, basically. We
Mhm.
usually have to hit it with a disc once just to get the plastic that was buried into the soil to come to the top to be able to reach the sun's rays.
Mhm.
But it's usually all gone. But now we're able to grow corn consistently in our heat unit area. So we're able to grow the corn that's made for this area consistently, but we're also able to pick a couple of varieties that are more suited to Tabor or Wisconsin or some of these areas that are better known for growing corn. And we're able to
Mhm.
use those varieties, and those equal more energy or more tonnage. So now we're getting way more milk per acre, which is way more efficient for a farm here in central Alberta.
Right.
So those are some of the reasons. But we also like this year was the first year we grew sweet corn, and that would have never been a thing without plastic. So we're really excited about technology. It's our third year, probably our fourth year coming up with the film, and we've had last year or 2 years ago was our best year, and last year was our best year. Beat the year before. And last year was a good year without plastic too. We had a
Mhm.
really long season, but the year before was cold and damp, and that was our second best corn year ever, and our corn without plastic was not good. So there was a huge difference there.
Right.
Yeah,
So, can you talk about the sweet corn a little bit more? You did your first ever U pick. How did that go?
that was awesome. So we started talking about it in the winter as a joke. That's how things, that's a lot of our ideas on the farm between me and Dad started as jokes and then pretty quickly become reality.
Yeah.
And so we're like, well, let's seed 2 acres of sweet corn.
Mhm.
And we seeded like 30, yeah, it was 24,000 plants an acre. So we had 48,000 plants in our sweet corn plot. And we're like, we'll just see how it goes. If it doesn't work, we silage it. No harm. And we won't advertise until we think we're gonna have something. And we were wondering,
Right.
how are we gonna do? Are we gonna do you pick? Are we gonna pick them and bring them to town?
Right.
But with COVID, we expected people to want to be able to get out and go do something. And don't forget, like around September, COVID cases weren't that bad. We weren't in a lockdown or anything, so people were able to come out.
Yeah.
So we think we sold 6,000 cops, and then we donated another 2,000 to the food bank.
Wow.
So yeah, we got rid of 8,000 cobs, and the rest we just silaged.
Mhm.
So next year we got big plans. We're gonna do the same amount of acres in sweet corn, because it's still by far enough.
Yeah.
And then we're going to be seeding sunflowers underneath film and pumpkins. So we're gonna have some variety. We love having people out. Like all of our neighbors loved it. It was great PR for the farm. It was a
Yeah.
way for us to be able to talk to people. It was good advertisement on our social media accounts. So we like that. A lot of people like we were charging people for corn. A lot of people were thanking us for doing it. So
Mhm.
it was
Yeah.
kind of fun. So we're definitely going to keep doing it, and we're a believer that agritourism can really benefit our business
Mhm.
and even just the community, right? It's almost like a community event to have a sweet corn fall in the local area. So that was pretty exciting.
Mhm. It was so awesome. I came out with my sister and my niece, and My niece, I think she was like 6 months at the time, and every time we ripped off an ear of corn, she would just burst out laughing. I have never seen that kid laugh so much. She loved it. She was so happy.
Yeah, that's
Um,
awesome.
yeah, it was
It
a
was,
really fun thing. I'm excited about the sunflowers and the pumpkins, though. That's going to be awesome.
and you know what the funny thing is? Like growing up, we never had corn. Like I don't know
Mm,
if it's a Dutch thing or if it was just my dad's thing, but corn was for cows. Humans don't eat corn, so we as kids never had corn. And my parents, I think this is probably like this fall was my dad's first ever corn on the cob. Like
what?
had never had it before, yeah. So, but they loved it. So, and it actually was good too. Like it
It
wasn't just like
was really
bad
good.
sweet corn. It was there. It was
Hmm.
like some of the best sweet corn I've ever had. So that was like
Hmm.
the most exciting part. We were actually good at growing it, not just we were able to grow it. So
Yeah.
that was really fun. Yeah.
And I will say that it seemed like this year the corn we got in the grocery store really wasn't that good. I remember a couple weeks before we came up to your farm, we bought some from the grocery store and it was like almost overripe. And
Yeah.
then we came up to your farm, we were like, okay, this is good corn. Yes.
Well, you're able to pick your own, right? And down there, like down in Tabor, they have to go when the average of the crop is ready, but that doesn't mean that every crop is ready, right? So
All right.
yeah, this is a fun opportunity. And people like in this area, no one ever did a U pick for corn. Like it's not
Mm-hmm.
something that is a normal thing, right? Like you can go pick berries and people like doing that, but
Right.
corn, that's a fun plant. Like it's tall, it's green, you get lost in there. There's a lot of ladies that were screaming all of a sudden because they got lost in the middle. Like
Yeah.
it was a fun time. So we're looking forward to doing it again this year.
Yeah, definitely. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Where did your passion for dairy come from?
Probably say it's genetics.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty honestly, like I come from I'm probably a 10th generation dairy farmer, if not longer. So it's in the blood. Dad always says it has to be in your blood. It's a lifestyle. You never really have. You can have days off, but you're never really off, right? You're always connected to the farm somehow. Um,
Mm-hmm.
uh, but my passion probably grew when I went to Lakeland College. Um, uh, I'd always like worked on the farm and didn't mind the work and stuff, but I was someone that wanted to know more and do more. And so when I went to school and kind of learned the theory behind a lot of things, like I was able to clean a stall of manure and just it was just a job. And when you went to school, you learned about why you were doing that and what the effect
Mm-hmm.
of not doing that for a cow's health would be and what organisms are growing there and things like that. So yeah, I would say that when I went to school, it kind of cultivated that passion, and it hasn't stopped since. So
Mm-hmm.
every year we're doing something different, or growing our farm, we're trying new technologies, or trying to increase efficiencies, and so that keeps things exciting and keeps moving us forward.
Mm-hmm. You can tell when you come to your farm that you really care about your cows and you know your cows, even though you have over 600 of them, you really know each of them individually.
Yeah.
If people are wanting to come out to the farm or want to get a hold of you, I know with COVID it's a little bit tricky right now, but how can they find you?
Yeah, so we're on social media pretty much everywhere. Twitter, it's at Jake Vermeer, and then on Facebook, it's our best spot is at Vermeer's Dairy Ltd. We have Instagram too. It's at Vermeer Dairy Farm, I believe. We even have TikTok, but we don't do a whole lot on there. It's
Mm-hmm.
tough to find time to make TikToks. I'd love
Yeah.
to almost like have someone like yourself come out and just help me make TikToks for a day, but it's fun to do, but it takes so much time.
Yeah, I
So
agree.
we're on all those social media accounts. Once COVID is gone, we'll be opening like taking requests for tours, and then we'll see about this summer about doing the open farm days or something like that, or some of
Mm-hmm.
our other open days for the summer. So
Awesome.
yeah,
I have one more question for you, and this is a CRE Board of Director question.
sure.
Why did you become a CRE Board of Director, and what has the experience been like for you so far?
Yeah, I wanted to become a director. I got the opportunity through you actually, which was awesome. Wanted to do more for the community and wanted to be part of the community, both as Jake from here, but also as our farm.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a huge believer in growing what agriculture can be and making sure that the consumer stays connected to the farm and stays
Mm-hmm.
engaged with what we're doing. It's so important. So many kids nowadays like 50 years ago, everyone was one generation away from the farm, right? But now you're
Mm-hmm.
multiple generations away, and now milk no longer comes from the cow; it comes from the store. And so that's a huge concern to me, and I think it's kind of a threat to our industry. So that's why I like doing work like this. I'll say my first year was a mixed experience because I really only encountered World Congress as a director, and for the rest, it was just like virtual meetings and board meetings. But the board's great to work with, and a great group of people. I look forward to being the treasurer now this year. And we're hoping that this year you can get back up on its feet and enjoy business without COVID, because it really sucks. And yeah, I think my problems as a director are nothing compared to what the CRE's business has been the last year. So really hope they can go back to normal.
Yeah, exactly. Tough times.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing your evening with us and giving us some information on dairy. I'm guessing we're going to have some follow-up questions from this, so we'll have to get you back for another episode.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I look
Thank you so
forward to
much.
it. It was awesome. I appreciate you having me on, and I've enjoyed listening to some of your other ones. And shout out to Don if he's still listening this far into the podcast. We'll see if we get a reaction.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Good.
Well, thank you so much, Jake.
Yeah. Have a good night.
Have a good night.